Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Chinese Immersion Parents Council Fremont, our series where we're interviewing D4 and D5 candidates for Fremont School Board. I'm Keith Koo, and I'll be moderating tonight's session. I'm joined with Julie Fan, who is our current CIPCF president, and Brian Lee, one of our former presidents. And our guest tonight is Vivek Prasad, who is a candidate running for D5. Welcome, Vivek.
Thanks, Keith. Glad to be here.
So, Vivek, why don't we start off with a little bit about your background? Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay, so I've been a Fremont resident for a little over 25 years, and the reason that I picked Fremont, or me and my wife picked Fremont, was the reputation of FUSD. It was very clear in our mind that we wanted to have a place where there was enough open space, as well as the school district was at par or better than pretty much everywhere else in the Bay Area. Right. So that's how we got here. Both my kids have now graduated through FUSD. Um, as part of that stint of going through the school system here, I have been a very active volunteer. And essentially, that was my way to give back to the community. And so I was on the board of PFA for 6 years, the mission PFA. And I was president for 4 years. So that gave me a lot of experience working with um, the parents, teachers, students, and staff alike. And we accomplished a lot. And through the hour today, we can talk about some of those. Uh, Now, I work in the high tech industry. Um, as we understand the global economy and the continued pressure on financial efficiency, whether it's a Fortune 100 company or Fremont Unified School District, financial efficiency is what drives our competitiveness everywhere. And I've done that, I've lived that, I manage several $100 million in revenues. So that gives me the perspective of financial management and tough decision making, but also tough negotiations in order to do the right thing for the right priorities. So I want to bring that to bear as a candidate here. Um, I also belong to a family that's very passionate about education. My wife is actually she has a degree in education, and she used to teach for many years. Um, and me and my sons and my wife, we've run some math programs in Fremont. We used to actually have an annual math contest for Fremont, open to all Fremont students. We used to lease the hall at Lake Elizabeth in the senior center there. And so we obviously we have a lot of passion for education, so we want to do the best for all our kids.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving us your background and what's motivating you to run for school board. Oh, you've talked a lot about your background, your professional skills, being executive in high tech. What particular skills do you have that you think would be very relevant to transition to public service in a public office?
I suppose that's where my 4 years being the president and being very tactful with everyone and trying to run a fairly tight ship, right? The budget was not very big, but we did grow it more than 2x as part of during my tenure, getting money from all the parents. But two things that stood out, right? One was the uh, priorities were very clearly defined, and it was aligned with all the stakeholders, not just a few, right? All the stakeholders. And then we also made it such that the money collected went towards the cause that it was collected for. Right? And all the contributors knew that it will benefit their students and their class in the same year. So when you build such a common ground and consensus, then you can achieve a lot. Um, and if you read some of the teachers' support statements on my website, you will see that we achieved a lot on small budgets. We by doing a few things again. Um, Obviously, we were partnered with teachers to get the most efficient use of money, but we also partnered with the local businesses. So if you were to buy, we bought something like 60 or 75 TV screens for classrooms, that would be a lot of money. So I went and I negotiated with Costco, with Fry's Electronics, and Fry's actually gave me half off for that. So these are things where when you, in order to get that, it becomes it you have to pitch your case. You have to be very open. You have to show the value, and you have to show the return of investment, right? So those are things that we brought to the table, and I won't say it was me, right? I was blessed with a strong team, and I like to work in a team to make things happen. And so we did uh, uh, sort of classroom improvements. We actually set up the first AP computer science class in FUSD. That cost us $70,000. Parents gladly donated. Um, then we sent all the department chairs of Mission San Jose High School to a teachers training uh, uh, out of state. And the agreement with them was when they come back, they will repeat that training for all the teachers, right? So we found things to do that would impact a lot of all the students and have a broad impact.
Well, thank you. Sounds very similar to our Mandarin Immersion program. Question is, we know that there's significant budget challenges facing FUSD. What, including budget, what are some of the greatest challenges you think that FUSD is facing?
Well, budgets, money drives a lot of decision making, right? But money should not be the main reason for decision making. So proper prioritization is a is an art, and there will be people pulling in all directions. And in public office versus private, I understand that actually a friend of mine was telling me that a school board is actually much more difficult than a city council, right? And which is true. I mean, the passions are great. I mean, we kind of live and die for our children while they are still at home, right? And I subscribe to that. So in order to make the right decisions, we need to bring everybody along. And that's one challenge that I see that the current board is not doing very effectively. There are so many discussions happening that do not even belong in the board. It should have been solved outside of the board. So, and lack of transparency leads to some of these very heated discussions. And this API, the AP courses, and whether who can register or not is a very good example. This discussion, this notion of kids that are not studying that subject at school would be on a wait list has been the policy forever, right? Even when I was the president. But the communication was very succinct that if we can do something, why? And if we cannot do something, why not? And the why not has to be very, very succinctly defined. Then, then people can come to a solution. If you don't even know, as parents, if you don't know what the problem the school is facing, how would you solve it? How would you help solve it? And and that lack of communication, lack of transparency, and almost a thou shall approach on many of these decision making process, to me is the biggest challenge. Um, and then money is money. It'll be tight. We have to find other sources of revenue. I mean, Fremont is a high achieving district. We don't have as many disadvantaged kids either. So we are kind of at the bottom of the totem pole for funding. So, but having said that, there's a lot of money available in the industry. There are internships available. Businesses want to contribute here as well. So let's find that common ground and then go find some money from the industry as well.
Thank you. So having said that, some of the challenges the district is facing, what are your personal goals and objectives if you were to obtain a seat on the board?
Well, my three-point agenda, and people take it as these are priority number 1, 2, and 3. No, these are my 3 priority ones. But there's 100 things to be done. So if we spend time on, okay, what are the top 3 things to do? Number 1 to me is student success. That is why we are here. And it is not about getting kids to do as many AP courses as possible and get into Ivy League, right? So for kids that want to do that, great, right? We need to support that. But for kids that want to go into vocational training, what I've been advocating from even before I started the campaign, as I was trying to figure out if I should even do this, right? I mean, I came here on popular demand as a candidate, so why should I do this? And the number of pathways that we used to have shrunk, and that makes every student become more of a cookie cutter. I mean, as you try to push them through the same pathway, not everybody is made out to excel in geometry. But by forcing them to take geometry, you've made them perform low. So it leads to them being called a failure, even though they have no intention of building a bridge, perhaps, that requires a lot of geometry knowledge. So changing the definition of success will be very important. And that way we have to support every student so that they can achieve whatever their full potential and their aspirations. So that's my first priority list. Second is the health and safety. We are in this unprecedented time with COVID. So health and safety, we understand much more today than we used to before this pandemic happened. So we have to bring some of the experiences that we have. Planning is key, so that return to school can be as safe as possible. But during this time, we have to also support our students. Some of them are getting getting cabin fever at home. So we have to find which students are more susceptible to this problem and create a phased approach to come back. And then once they are back, I probably differentiate myself from other candidates in supporting the SRO program 100%. I did partner with them in my PFA role very greatly, and I'm very appreciative of all they had done with us at that time. So the mission traffic program is one of the successes, and it happened in partnership with the SRO. So I'd like to make sure that our campus safety is maintained. We have low incident rates. It's not by accident. It's that way because we have a good program going. And my third one is facilities and budgets. Today, our kids do not identify with the school very much. Once they leave the school, if I take my personal example, when I had my 25th anniversary and then the 30th anniversary of my high school back in India, I went there. I wanted to go there. Sometimes I could, sometimes I could not. But the image of the school is, and the bonding that we had it still lives, right? Even after 40 years. I don't see similar bonding here. So we want to build that, and facilities is one good way. When the student shows up, if the facilities are nice, they will focus more on school as well, but they will have nice memories about it. So I want to focus on that. It's not going to be easy. I was a big campaign. I campaigned strongly for Measure E, and that gave us the $650 million. It is very disappointing as to what we accomplished out of the $650 million. And you and I, we've had this conversation in the past that this new school that the developer built cost about the same amount as the renovation of, let's say, Walters. Right? So how come things are so inefficient? So we have to, if you don't build confidence in the community that your money will be spent wisely, then we will not get the next measure. And without the next measure, we are not going to be able to improve the facility. So let's boost that confidence again. Let's say what we do and let's do what we say, and with full transparency, then the community will rally behind us to make FUSD the greatest school district again.
Thank you for sharing your 3-point plan. You had gotten started about how you differentiate yourself. So this is the first year we're moving to district elections for FUSD. So if you would like to expand on what you think differentiates you from other D5 candidates or other board members, now's your time. You can go deeper into that.
Well, so let me put how I excel, right? And then uh, I don't want to be in negative campaigning here. So let me tell you where I excel. So differentiation SRO is one very big one for me. Number two is to expand the curriculum base, right? Instead of trying to reduce and trying to drive equity through reduction, I want to drive equity through or equality through excellence, right, and diversification, and then find options on how to fund those. And then number three for me is uh, if you look at the transparency aspect of it compared to the board and the administration, what is happening today. This AP courses is a very good example. I sent emails, I sent text messages, I got different responses from different people. But there was no why behind the decision in any of those communication back. So I want to change that from a board perspective. And then the experience to manage large budgets. I tell this to all my team members is when you have a budget above a certain amount, and I use the people that use envelopes for budgeting at home, right? You may run out of one budget, but you have budget somewhere else. And if your budget for watching movies is still there, but your budget to buy food has run out, what would you do? Would you still go watch two movies anyway because you have money there? Or will you say, maybe that's a bit discretionary, so I will use the money for some of the more essential um, spending. So you shake a rug, you'll find dollars here and there, and by going to what industry calls the zero-based budget, where every significant spending is reviewed, even if it is part of the already approved budget, I think we can do a lot with the money that we have today.
Thank you. Earlier, when you were giving your background, you were talking about how you bring stakeholders together. And I can think of stakeholders between students and teachers, which is speaking frequently about, as well as what doesn't get spoken as frequently about is parents, who sometimes feel like they don't have a voice anymore in the district. Between those three groups and any other stakeholder groups, how do you think you're going to bring those voices together?
So actually, if you look at the parents have a seat at the table today, right? But it's almost a ceremonious seat. We make it an actual seat at the table, and we'll be able to get them. So teachers are represented by the union leadership today, um, and obviously administrators, staff, and FUSD board are there. Um, I'm not certain that the teacher's voice is also being heard fully. So we should be getting some of our teachers that are our pride of FUSD. We need to give individual teachers a voice as well. In addition to we talk about parents a lot, right? And parents are the noisy commodity right now. And I'm from the parent community here, right? So I understand their feeling. I have enabled a lot for parents, so they are the ones that actually invited me to run. So I'm sure parents whoever are watching, I'll be 200% listening to you. But we have to also listen to individual teachers. We have to listen to the diverse opinions that are there. And then if you put the problem statement and you say why I can support it, why I cannot support it, then you find the common ground. Things cannot happen where you sit in a board meeting and people do this community, so the voice, and then you go straight into a vote or yes or no, right? On the agenda, there needs to be more discussion, more debate before we get to actually on the agenda item for many of these topics. And one way I'd like to solve that is what I did as part of my PFA president role. Very few people actually saw me in classrooms and other places because my team was empowered and they would do a lot of the work themselves. So by scaling myself with a strong team, we accomplished a lot. So I've already communicated this to the FUSD administration as well. Maybe it's not quite allowed, but I will have a team of teachers and parents that will help me with outreach and with messaging and feedback, because I cannot meet with 10,000 people. Uh, but if I have 20 people, they can all meet with 500 people. You get to your 10,000 number, right? So let's do that, and by that mechanism, we'll find all the stakeholders' opinions, bring that back, and then have a candid and transparent conversation.
Thank you for the answer. Earlier, we were talking about the budget. You had some innovation or innovative ideas around bringing in private companies to sponsor FUSD. So we'll park that for a second. But in terms of the immediate budgetary issues at hand, do you have other ways, or what would you like to tackle first if you get elected?
So immediate budget issues, again, so the state gave us some money, right? So some $6.5 million or so that added um, to our reserve so that we did not fall below. So there's some money coming because of our current status. Where if you look at there's an MOU signed between FEF and FUSD to try to raise some funds. So I will try to help with that. And um, you have to still prioritize each of the asks. And like we were talking earlier about the zero period, but not today, but
Oh no! But while you bring it up, you should
yeah,
talk about it now, and
yeah, yeah.
we haven't even talked about equity yet. So so we'll
Yeah.
get to that.
So
But yeah.
so as you look at zero period, I mean, what does that cost us? Right? I mean, when you have when you look at the cost angle of that, the custodians are already there during that time. Um, so it could be teachers' time. In some situations, it's the parents actually funding that teacher's time as well, or the teacher is volunteering. So we have to find those little things that can make a significant impact. Um, so if we cannot offer an AP course at school, uh, let the kids go take that corresponding course at community college. It costs us $0. We just have to open it up so that that course can show up on the student's transcript. It does not cost us any more money. So there are many things that we are restricting in the name of budget. And sometimes we restrict it because you can only provide it at one school and not others. So that's another way I want to leverage is if, let's say, AP psychology, let's say we have two brilliant teachers at two campuses, but not at other campuses. Distance learning has showed us that some of these subjects can be very well learned through Zoom meetings. So let's create a space in the library where students can sit and go dial into another classroom somewhere else. So there are some of these artificial barriers that have been put in place. Um, uh, and some rather controversial thing seems to be asking teachers to actually go at two different campuses on two different days. Um, I don't see why that is such a big problem, but let's. I would like to understand how to leverage our expertise and capabilities and the best and brightest teachers to have a broader impact.
So let's bring the topic up higher because we started talking about equity in a sense, and equity is a very loaded word throughout the district.
Mm-hmm.
What is your definition of equity in education?
I have a very myopic view in terms of education, it is the student success, right? And everybody else is a partner as a means to that end. So to me, equity means I provide the opportunity for every student to be able to learn what they want to learn, and get into, after high school, get into the vocation that they really desire to be. And I want to do it by creating opportunities of curriculum, but also to find partner with let's say local businesses and the industry as well to create internships, so that kids actually develop, they try certain things even in high school instead of going to college as undeclared major and then go figure out their calling. So let's to me, equity means we enable students to really learn what they want to learn and not what we are able to provide for them.
Okay. To some parents, it seems as if the equity is solved for by trying to give a very similar experience to everybody else, and to actually, as you brought up zero period, to target programs that it's not a financial impact, but it's more of the optics that it's something unique or special, even though there are examples of unique and special all throughout the district. Um, Beyond relatively what makes sense to a lot of us, like you mentioned, why don't we do things that take zero cost in some instances, things that the district actually think that they quantify. And we bring up an example again, zero period, I think it was less than $50,000 a year, but yet it comes up over and over again each year as something that needs to be taken away under the banner of equity.
Mhm.
How do we get that, these tangible things that we see in front of us every year, how do we change the discussion on that?
Well, see, again, see, equity to me, I'll come to this specific question, but let's talk about equity in terms of learning first, right? So people talk about financial equity or equity of opportunity and all that. All of those things, uh, I mean, let's say, take it to the world stage is not equitable, right? There's some countries excel in one thing, some countries excel in the other thing. Uh, so you have to, the school is supposed to be a place where you teach kids how to learn, right? And so some school may have, uh, so I do not subscribe to this thing about every school should have all the opportunities. If that was if that were the case, then we would might as well be robots that get a chip programmed in our head and we are all done. So we by having programs that are where you have the right teacher with the right skill set to teach, uh, is paramount. And then you allow students the mobility. If somebody really wants the Mandarin immersion program or the Hopkins, the kind of the award-winning music program there, um, let them have the ability to go take the course there, because we cannot. And don't want to single out Mr. Conway, but we can't clone him to go to other schools. But perhaps if he is willing, and if he may be able to travel to another school, right? That's one of my ideas, to say, okay, 2 days at Hopkins and 2 days maybe at Walters. So these are thought processes, but we, instead of saying cut something because somebody else cannot have it, I mean, that is kind of, to me, that's Stone Age thinking. We have moved on so far from being on the same level playing field in our global economy, that you have to bring the economy to you rather than you going to every region to experience what is going on, right? Um, we want to, um, anyway. So I think I'm going around in circles a bit here, but let's say, so my thinking is cutting something for $50,000 when it is an award-winning program is a very sort of backward view of things. Let's move forward. Let's try to make progress instead of reducing uh, excellent offerings. Let's see how to bring that to more people.
Got it. So going back to the community, we talked about stakeholders, we talked about the different groups. It seems, especially between the union and the district, things have been very contentious. And your two competitors for D5 both had a joint endorsement by the teachers union. How do you think that either does or does not affect you, um, negatively or positively, in your campaign? And then also then how do you plan to bring stakeholders themselves together, um, if you get elected?
So, well, I got a few calls from people as to, I mean, why would a teachers union say anything but me? Are they so confused that they cannot even pick one candidate to back up? So yeah, it is a bit weird. For the record, I was never even contacted, so they probably have some preconceived notions of my views. But I will not fault the teachers for this, right? This is a leadership issue. It is not a teacher issue. I have great working relationship with a lot of teachers, and hey, people make decisions, but we don't. I'm not someone that looks in my rear view mirror and say, oh, maybe something bad happened there. Once I win, I have to work with the union leadership. I respect them for the fact that they fight very hard for the teachers' rights. What I would like to see change is to not forget why we are here, and that is our students.
Let's go back, because earlier you said you differentiate yourself by your position on the SRO. Just so for the record, what is your view on the SRO situation?
So a lot of, well, I support it. I want to keep it as is. From a safety security perspective, I do feel that SROs have been burdened with a lot of things that go above and beyond. Maybe formal charter or not, uh, those things can be reevaluated. I'm a firm believer in continuous improvement, so I will not say that the SROs are uh, perfect. There's room for improvement in that program as well. Uh, so if I look at, I've already said I've partnered with them. I've achieved good results. Having a criminal type element coming into open campuses is easy, and teenage is where it's easy for the kids to get swayed by negative influence, right? I mean, while we have to teach our kids the right values, we also want to remove any temptations uh, that could come their way. So SRO being there helps a lot in that situation. Now, to me, it's kind of appalling that we are talking about this 770K expense. I mean, if you go to any strip mall today, I mean, what is the security threat there? I mean, there's probably the entire strip mall probably has no more than $100,000 worth of cash at any given point in time, but they all have a private security guard. Why? So the community should ponder on that and say, if if the lives of uh, the individuals that are there, and at any point in time maybe no more than 50 people visiting, if their safety, their security is worth spending tens of thousands of dollars, and this is for each of the strip malls, why is it that when you have a subsidized uh, actual police officers coming here, why is that such a big burden? And why do we think that the schools um, are not susceptible to the same level of threats that our local businesses are facing? So again, this is a very politicized um, issue, and I this seems to kind of align with some of the more global thinking that politics does not belong in the school. Um, my personal opinion on other topics outside of the school, uh, I don't want to bring to bear here, but it's a essentially it's a school. My child's safety uh, is actually even more important than what my child is learning at the school. So at no cost would I would I vote to remove SROs?
Got it. Earlier, we talked about budget. We've talked about the bond. We've talked about how the funds for the earlier measure could have been done differently. Do you support a new parcel tax or bond?
It's a tough question given the current situation. We need. I want to answer your other question a little bit more here. I would like to partner with our teachers union. They have such big leverage to actually go influence Sacramento for getting more budgets here, right? So California is actually, the economy of California matches, I don't know exactly where, right?
I think it's the sixth largest economy in the world if it was its own country.
If it was its own country, right? So having so much trouble funding schools should not happen, right? So we need to actually fight a battle over there rather than fight the battle here. But having said that, I would personally gladly support or pay for another bond measure myself, and I will try to convince the community to do the same. But I do not want to support something where the money goes to the state. I want to support something where the money stays with the school district and is fully in control of the school district. And then I want to change how we write our contracts so that we do not put almost more than 50% of the money in the contingency fund rather than towards the cause. So I would do our planning much differently for any money we raise from our taxpayers.
Got it.
Can I just ask you a question? On your website, you mentioned that that you have an unwavering focus on students as customers. Can you expand a little bit on that? What do you mean by that? Are you proposing a different perspective on how to view students and how we serve them?
So if you look at businesses, right? They depend on the customers. The customer is always right. I mean, there are all these euphemisms about how you treat a customer. And if I had, let's say even at Mission, if we had at least more than 1,000 kids saying, please let me register for AP classes, that's half of my customer base. I would not, in business, I would never think of going against the wishes of half of my customers. So I use that as a way of changing our thought process to say that as a customer-centric society, where I mean most of us have in the family somebody or the other is working for some business and they understand customers. So that's my way of saying that I would raise the priority of our students' voice in the decision-making process.
Yeah, do you think that the lack of student voice or not seeing student as a customer, do you think that could be a reason why there's I think the latest demographic study I saw in Fremont is that like, I think 15-20% of this FUSD students are actually going to private school instead of going to public school education. Do you see that as a reason why we're losing students, so many students to private schools?
I think that is the largest contributor in this exodus out of FUSD school system.
Yeah, Judy, do you have any questions?
No, nothing additional. You touched upon a lot of the things that I was wondering from your website in terms of just your agenda. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so I mean, to expand, Brian, on your question a bit more. Yeah, I have a lot of parents that I have spoken with in the last 3 months. And obviously I was living that life for many years. Right? So I mean, a lot of people have their older sibling continue in FUSD because it's very late to change. but the younger sibling has moved out to private school. And that's such a vote of no confidence in not only the current state, but the trajectory of where education is going in FUSD. And we have to bring that back. And I keep saying that it's not only about students. I mean, talking to people when I call them, or I'm canvassing, or even just walking down the street, my evening walk, and I bump into people. So some people say, "Oh, my kids have already graduated, so why should I care?" And I tell them, if you want to look at us, right? We are yesterday's generation. If the kids don't associate with Fremont as some place that they actually have bonded with, they will never come back here. And every year we'll be 1 year older as a city. And we've built a nice little downtown here, right? Over the last few years. I want the city to become vibrant. You talk about going to Castro Street, and it's a happening place, right? And most kids want to go live in San Francisco because there's variety and there's that energy. We need that energy here. It's not only during the school years, but also when they go finish whatever their next higher studies is, and then they come back to Fremont and give back to the community. And with that, actually, I mean, if you look at so many students, when they become successful, they give back to their alma mater, right? And you have all these universities with big endowments. But can we get our students to actually contribute back here? Absolutely. So there are many reasons to actually pay attention here and see why that exodus is happening, and go fix that.
All right. Well, Vivek, we thank you so much for your time tonight. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience?
So I'm obviously passionate about education. I wasn't one of those what they call a typical pushy dad for my kids. So you may have seen some of the letters that my kids wrote in favor of my campaign. So, but I did always push them one level to achieve one level beyond where they are achieving, right? So that nudge as a parent is important. We have to have a balanced view from parent side. I do want to make sure that the families become stronger. And as the families become stronger and the school becomes stronger, this community will become more of a family-oriented community as well. So I'm the only independent candidate. That one postcard shows that I'm not bundled with the others. It is a grassroots campaign. My focus area is very well defined. It is the students with our teachers and parents as partners. So let's take the lack of confidence in our school district and the energy that goes in just trying to figure out why a decision is being made or the way it is being made. Take that energy, turn it into a positive. I think sky is the limit for us. So I ask all your viewers for their vote for our kids, for our city. And you can find a lot of information on my website. It is vote for VP, vote number 4, vp.com. And my phone number is there as well. Feel free to call, and let's do this for our kids. Thank you.
All right, Vivek. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. On behalf of the Chinese Immersion Parents Council Fremont, I'm Keith Koo, Julie Fan, President, and Brian Lee, former President. We all thank you again, and we look forward to seeing the election results, and we thank the audience as well. So have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Julie and Brian. Bye now.
Bye.